Viktor Reznov, a hero to Call of Duty fans and should have been hero to the Russians after he led his Red Army to the heart of Berlin and signalled the beginning of the end of World War II, but things did not play out like you might have thought. However, his passion for bloodshed, warfare, kicking some Nazi arse, as well as shouting at the top of his lungs, remained strong and true as we progress forward into Reznov's story in Black Ops. If you haven't seen the chaos that is the first video on Reznov in World at War, you can find that at the top right of your screen, but let's get started. Spoiler alert, Black Ops story is a bit of a mindfuck, quite literally. It's easy to get lost, so I'm gonna try my best to show things in chronological order rather than the order we experience them in the game's missions. Only 6 months after conquering Berlin, Sergeant Reznov is now Captain Reznov, and with Dmitri still fighting alongside him, they are tasked with capturing Nazi scientist Steiner, who has created a not so very nice nerve toxin called Nova 6. He was tasked by Dragovich, who severely pissed Reznov off in the Battle of Stalingrad by not sending in reinforcements, so there was tension in the air to say the least.
The men and I have fought through the most bitter of winters on the Eastern Front. We were no strangers to cold, but even now, the blood in my veins chills when I think back to the events of that day.
But still, Reznov is devoted to his country.
As long as Mother Russia has enemies, I will answer her call.
I mean, at least it sounds like he is. Anyway, Reznov's balls are going to freeze up if he doesn't start exercising his trigger finger, or well, his other trigger finger that is, and he starts laying waste to yet more Nazis who have already probably had nightmares of Reznov showing up to their ship like Darth Vader at the start of A New Hope. Without even breaking a sweat, he leads his men closer to this Steiner guy.
We must be getting close to Steiner.
He will be where all cowards reside, as far away from the battlefield as possible.
Makes you think who isn't a coward in Reznov's eyes when he's such a madman. No wonder it's always Russians doing crazy shit on top of buildings on YouTube when Reznov is setting the benchmark for bravery, but yeah, it doesn't take long to eventually find Steiner, who orders Reznov to take him to Dragovich. What? Since when did a Nazi tell Reznov what to do? Clearly Dmitri thinks it's a bit dodgy as well.
Dragovich and Steiner are talking like old friends. I do not like this, Reznov.
No, Dmitri.
And who would have guessed that Dmitri and Reznov's gut feeling was to be vindicated when those pricks Dragovich, Kravchenko and Steiner betray Reznov and his men by attempting to kill them with their newfound nerve agent. It might not be as shocking a betrayal as, say, General Shepard, but it was definitely more brutal. Maybe that's where Shepard got the inspiration from.
Dmitri Kravchenko was a hero. He deserved a hero's death. Instead of giving his life for the glory of the motherland, he died for nothing. Like an animal.
Well, that's pretty rough, and Reznov would have suffered the same fate had the British not showed up to storm the vessel, although don't get it mistaken, they're not here to save our man, they're here for a bit of Nova 6 action as well.
We will plunge this vessel into the depths of hell. We cannot let either side possess this terrible weapon.
And unsurprisingly, he does. That ship goes up in flames before down into the icy depths below, but this would prove to be Reznov's last act of freedom for 18 years, as he is then captured and sent to a Russian prison camp in Vorkuta. That's a lot to take in for what is essentially an introduction. In fact, it's really only the introduction to the introduction, because now Reznov is in Vorkuta, where he will meet an American prisoner by the name of Alex Woods. Quick backstory, Woods was captured by Fidel Castro after sacrificing himself so his comrades Woods and Bowman, or Ice Cube sorry, could escape Cuba, but Castro then hands over Woods to Dragovich and his posse as a gift, who then throws him in Vorkuta as well, whilst also subjecting him to brainwashing so that he'd assassinate JFK. Super simple stuff. Reznov and Mason both become good pals during their stay in Vorkuta, probably because they're both absolute lunatics with a love of being in dangerous situations, but like I say, they both form a close bond, and indeed that entire mission and betrayal of Reznov in the Arctic is delicately told to Mason.
As I looked into the German's eyes, I saw all the evil of the fascist Reich still burning strong. At that moment, every fiber of my being yearned to put an end to his wretched life.
Oh, believe me, he tells Mason a lot.
You must decide. Decide what you think is worth fighting for. Dragovich, Kravchenko, style. These men must die.
Fair enough, I think he's justified with that assessment of the situation, and it seems the time has come for them to both break out of the prison, the breakout plan all built and orchestrated by Reznov of course, starting with him and Mason fighting and instigating a riot to bait out the guards.
Every journey begins with a single step.
This is step one! Secure the keys! Now, we take Vorkuta! What is step two?
And so on. Evidently the plan for breaking out has more steps than IKEA furniture instructions, but it's most surprising when we meet a Russian even Reznov calls a monster.
Allow me to introduce Sergei Kozh, the monster of Megadeth.
I'm glad you're a friend, Sergei.
Reznov, you should get trust as American.
With my life. He and us are not so different. We are all soldiers without an army, betrayed, forgotten, abandoned. In Vorkuta, we are all brothers.
I'm not gonna lie, the poignant nature of this Reznov speech is as hard hitting as ever, but I can't help but think he looks a bit like Colonel Sanders here. I do apologise unreservedly for that disrespectful comment. Don't you think it's about time some sacrifices were made for old Viktor? Well, the prisoners do when they show that they are willing to literally die for him as they are slaughtered during the breakout and her guys continue to push forward.
Months of planning, Mason. We will not pause. We will not falter. We will be free or die trying.
This shit would have you screaming "Ura" in your room whilst playing, and it only gets crazier. Reznov is giving a speech over the tannoy, Mason is catapulting Molotovs at guards before harpooning a bloody helicopter. Jesus Christ, this is Reznov's finest work yet, until the big man Sergei is shot down whilst holding a door open for us, the price he pays for being a gentleman. However, the action kicks up a notch again when Mason gets his hands on a death machine.
Step 7, comrades!
Hell is certainly being raised until it stalls when Mason is hit with tear gas. Of course Reznov drags him to safety, but again I'm left wondering what the hell is this guy made of not to also be affected by the gas? Questions for another time maybe.
Within the shine to the hypocritical decadence of Vorkuta's leaders lays the key to step 8.
Freedom.
Just when you think things couldn't get more intense, we are shooting baddies from a motorcycle, then jumping from the motorcycle into an armed truck, then jumping from the armed truck to a bloody train.
Go, Mason, go!
Your turn! Come on! Step 8, Reznov! Freedom!
For you, Mason, not for me!
Reznov!
And that was the last you saw of Viktor Reznov.
Yes. At least for a while.
So is the seemingly indestructible Viktor Reznov dead? Did he sacrifice himself so we could escape? But Mason said he didn't see him for a while. I'll let you ponder all that while the newcomers here take a few seconds to hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell to join the notification squad like these two loyal members on your screen right now. Okay, time's up. Are we going to pretend like we don't know the script here? Will I just play along for a wee bit? Indulge yourselves in some more Reznov craziness? Actually, that sounds pretty good. So anyways, Mason and his gang are in Vietnam chasing down a Russian defector who just so happens to be our old friend.
Mason,
Reznov. How'd you get out of Vorkuta? Never thought I'd see you alive.
not are you, my friend. I am here with a warning. Your government would do well to heed. Dragovich is planning an attack on the west.
Hard to tell if it's all got a bit much for Reznov, but you'd expect a wee bit more of a loving embrace as the old friends are reunited, but it's straight back to work for them in any case, fighting their way out of an ambush. We'll skip forward a bit to when Mason and Co are on the hunt for Kravchenko, and their chopper goes down and he's seemingly about to drown until, you guessed it, Reznov shows up to save the day again. Is this guy your guardian angel or something?
Sergeant Woods is very capable. You have chosen your men well, Mason. I will move to high ground to look for Kravchenko's compound.
Understood. Stay close, Viktor.
What in the spooky shit is going on here? I like Reznov as much as the next guy, but he's virtually dominating every waking thought Mason has, but is he... isn't he...
Reznov, you nearly took a bullet.
No one fights alone, miss. I will work my way around.
Alright, but move quietly. What the fuck's wrong with you?
What do you mean? It's my man Viktor, right? Just casually killing this wannabe. So Kravchenko is nowhere to be found here, and we have to escape from yet another ambush, although Mason is captured a short while later. It was a good run, you know, 3 days or so without being in captivity of some sort. I'm sure you know how this goes by now. We break out against all the odds, Reznov appears out of nowhere, so what the hell is going on? It all gets even more confusing when Woods stabs and seemingly sacrifices himself to kill the bastard Kravchenko we've been after for far too long at this stage, I have to say.
Are you okay? Mason.
Reznov.
Kravchenko is dead. Dragovich, Kravchenko, Stein. All must die.
But of course Reznov isn't quite finished yet. Steiner still has to be dealt with, so off to Rebirth Island we go, and it looks like Reznov stopped by Stone Island on the way to pick up a snazzy new jacket. Got to look good when you're taking on baddies, especially a baddie as bad as Steiner.
Your evil has claimed the lives of many good men. No longer.
Killing me will not stop Nova.
I do not care about no one. My name is Viktor Reznov. And I will have my revenge.
Fuck. I swear to God, that's how Steiner died. Reznov killed him right in front of me.
You're lying, Mason. You killed Steiner. We know you did.
Dun dun dun! Man, this story has more twists than the earphones in my jacket pocket. So this entire time since Vorkuta, Reznov has been in Mason's head, and not in a fanboy sort of way like the rest of us have. Nah, like I mentioned near the start, Mason was severely brainwashed by Steiner and his chums to assassinate JFK, but somewhere along the line, Reznov hijacked Mason's brain and did a bit of brainwashing on his own. Must have used a power washer for it.
The pain is difficult, isn't it? We are brothers, Mason. We are the same. Dragovich, Kravchenko, Stein. All must die.
Dragovich brainwashed you, but Reznov had plans of his own.
Aye, we figured that, Hudson. You're about a week late with that breaking news. Anyway, Mason finally remembers where he was initially brainwashed and tracks Dragovich down to an underwater base. Mason kills him and Reznov sounds buzzing with the result.
Mason, you did it, Mason. You did what I could not.
The end. Jesus, Viktor, you're one tricky customer, but that is the end of his story. Well, except when Mason has a relapse in Afghanistan during Black Ops 2. When confronting Kravchenko, who isn't really dead by the way, neither is Woods as it turns out, Mason starts seeing the numbers and hearing Reznov in his head again, urging him to kill Kravchenko, and it's actually up to the player if they want to do Reznov's bidding or resist him. Your action here will have consequences later in the game, but what won't change is this new set of bad guys betraying you after you decide what you're doing with Kravchenko. Consider me shocked. We are left in the desert to rot until for one last time Viktor Reznov shows up in some capacity anyway to save us.
So, we're in a desert buried to here. Who does your father think rides up on a horse to save us?
Tricky Vic.
Ha! See? You're just like your old man. No, it wasn't him.
Reznov.
Come on, if you think it was him, don't you think he would have stuck around for a bit, huh? Maybe explain some shit?
Nah, Woods, I think I've explained all there is to know, folks. That is going to be all for this video. A lot of effort went into this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please do leave a like on it for old Reznov and my own sanity trying to get a grasp on the Black Ops storyline again. It had been a while. Let me know in the comments your favourite Reznov moment. Have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.